Shadow Attorney General, fraud is what you're here to talk about today. It's out of control, isn't it?
It's completely out of control. Kwasi Kwarteng may say that it isn't a crime that people know about in their day-to-day lives. He's completely wrong. During the pandemic, in the statistics that the last lot of statistics that we have, which goes up to September 21, there was, I think, 1 million allegations of fraud that was called into Action Fraud. Action Fraud is this organisation. Action seems to be a bit of a misnomer because only 1.2% of those allegations actually led to any sort of charge. And then they're supposed to send it off to the local police forces. And again, you know, the number of times that they've been sending them off to the police has halved. So, and then in turn, the police are not properly investigating and they're not being charged. It boils down to this, doesn't it? That crime seems to be increasing, the number of charges seems to be going down, and it's taking longer and longer for anything to get to court.
But it could also boil down to we don't understand cyber fraud. We're not equipped to tackle with it. We're not funded, and the institutions and legislation within Parliament isn't up to the minute on this sort of thing. We've a lot to learn, haven't we?
Oh, no, I agree with you. And I also know that the government just simply isn't focused on the issue. You know, I asked them a question, Eamon, I said to them, how much of this fraud, you know, that consumers are facing comes from the UK and how much of it comes from abroad? And they couldn't even tell me that. If they can't even tell us what the nature of the crime is, then how on earth are we ever going to tackle it? It seems to me that it is difficult, and there are lots of different agencies that deal with it, but what we need to do is we need to get them together and we need to have real focus on it and know that we can make a difference, because otherwise we cannot get in front of this, and it is the biggest crime that affects the most number of people. You know, it affects all of us, you know, and it's embarrassing sometimes. I mean, I remember I got a text message which I responded to, and it was fraudulent. I was embarrassed. In fact, I was able to defend myself against it, but, you know, the elderly, the people who, the young, those who don't quite follow the system can get defrauded of large amounts of money that they ill afford to be able to lose. And there doesn't seem to be any redress. There doesn't seem to be anybody out there who's on their side, anybody out there who's prepared to prosecute it, find these people, track them down and stop it.
Yeah, and it's so clever, it's so devious, the methods that they take. I mean, on the subject of fraud, Keir Starmer says...
I mean, that's the trouble, it's varied as well.
Right. Well, I've said on the subject of fraud, Keir Starmer is saying he's going to make Brexit work. The Labour Party is going to make Brexit work. Is he a fraud? No, he's absolutely genuine. The point is this, isn't it, is that, you know, many of us in the Labour Party campaigned to remain in the European Union, and we lost the referendum. There was then campaigns during the two general elections, 2017 and 2019. 2019 in particular, which was about Brexit. It was a single issue general election. We lost it. We lost it. So now what we have to do is we have to accept the reality. It's a one-way street. We have gone. And the fact of the matter is, Eamon, is that we will not be able to rejoin the European Union on the same terms as we were members before. It is simply impossible. So what we should be doing is making the best of the situation, and we should be moving on and looking forward and being optimistic, but being prepared to face the problems that we have as a nation, face the problems that we have with our nearest neighbours, and make sure that we sort it out. Not just be afraid, as the government are. They spend their time running away from it, going, oh, don't criticise us, you're being unpatriotic. Well, excuse me, but the deal that you signed on Christmas Eve has all sorts of holes in it. You need to make sure that they are repaired for the sake of the country.
Yeah, look, you say it's about being positive about it all now and that you accept that. I mean, obviously, Sir Keir Starmer voted 48 times against Brexit. You yourself, an ardent Remainer. And yes, you say you've changed your tune now, but it wasn't exactly dripping in enthusiasm during that speech last night. It looked like reluctant resignation. It's all very easy to say we'll fix the Northern Ireland Protocol, but it looks a lot like he's talking about dynamic alignment in his resolution to all of that, which just opens up EU directives getting involved in the protocol.
No, it isn't. No, so what we've talked about, for example, and the thing that would make a real difference to goods that are, you know, today having problems moving across from Dover into
the rest of Europe, or from the mainland to Northern Ireland, or from Northern Ireland into the south of Ireland, is a veterinary agreement. And a veterinary agreement is simply this. It's simply accepting that our food standards are the same, if not better, than the rest of Europe. Now, if we could just get an agreement on that, then we wouldn't have all of this red tape when it comes to the export of our food. You know, I mean, New Zealand can get a veterinary agreement with the EU. Why can't we? And you ask the government why, and they come up with a whole load of nonsense, you know, but the truth is this is red tape that comes because they have a bad Brexit deal. It has a number of holes in it, and they ought to sort this out.
On this, and I quote Sadiq Khan, who spoke just minutes around the time of Sir Keir Starmer's speech last night. "We are only just beginning to understand the damage Brexit is doing, so nothing is off the table in the fight to tackle the cost of living crisis." He's not alone in those views within your party, Stella Creasy, to name just one other.
Look, I'm not saying that things can be perfect for business, but what I'm saying is that they can be a darn sight better. If we had a government that was prepared to face up to the problems that we have and the number of issues that we get as a result of leaving the European Union, and make sure that we do it, you know, that we do the right thing. But at the moment, we have a government that is not prepared to even look at it. It doesn't seem to have the bandwidth to be able to sort this out. As far as Boris Johnson's concerned, Brexit's done. That's the end of it. And yet, look at the issues that we have. Look at the problems that we have. We are a service economy. What does the Brexit deal say about services? Nothing. You know, there are a number of issues that we could do. So what about getting professionals in the UK's qualifications recognised in the rest of Europe? Why haven't we got that as part of the deal? Because they didn't have time to do it, because they were fighting. What they need to do is stop fighting, be a bit more grown up, and sit down with the European Union and get some of these things sorted out. That's all we're saying. We're just saying, let's look to the future, let's be optimistic, let's not be afraid. These things can be sorted, just got to do it.
What is your future as a party, with or without Keir Starmer?
Our future as a party, I certainly hope, is to be the next government and for Keir Starmer to be the next Prime Minister. And what we want is we want to have a government that is thoughtful, that has some vision, that is strong, that doesn't spend its time trying to divide our country, that shows that there's an alternative. We don't have to have this terrible lot in charge anymore. There is an alternative, and we ask for the permission from the people to serve them.
Let me ask you, if you were in charge, if you were Home Secretary now, I mean, you want to crack down on all these parasites stealing money from our bank accounts, right? And rightly so, absolutely rightly so. Where would you stand when it comes to the fuel protesters at the moment? The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, she's saying she wants the police and crime bill used. She wants the police to use new powers to stop these fuel protesters bringing the roads to a halt around the country. Yet many people might see these protesters as sort of Robin Hoods, as doing the job for them, as doing the job that the government isn't doing, because they feel that we as a country are being ripped off by the oil companies. What would you do if you were Priti Patel?
Yeah. So I think there's a number of things that should be done. So I think the first thing is that we should recognise that people do have the right to protest, but they don't have the right to close down roads ad nauseum. You know, so we need to get the balance right on that. I think that's right. And so whilst it's right that people should have the opportunity to be able to express their views, as I say, we also need to bear in mind that on those roads there will be ambulances, there will be lorries taking food to shops and so forth. You know, we need to make sure the arteries of our country do remain in a healthy place. So that's a kind of a balance thing. But you know what we should also be doing as a government, if we were in government, we would actually be looking at what do we do about the fact that these prices are so high. So, you know, we heard recently from the Chancellor he was going to cut VAT, but he never had, as far as we can see, an agreement with these petrol companies saying that they would actually pass on that cut to the consumers. There was no agreement in advance, so the petrol companies go, oh, thank you very much, pocket that, you know, and keep the prices the same as they are before. We need to make sure that we don't have this kind of racketeering from petrol companies, but we also need to have some sort of vision when it comes to making sure that we're not dependent on fossil fuels, in which that we need to rely on all sorts of regimes around the world to be able to send into our country. We need to be self-reliant, and in order to be self-reliant, we need to look at the new forms of power that are available, you know, to us as a country. We need to make sure that we are we're subsidising people in low and middle incomes to be able to move on to electric vehicles. We need to make sure that we have power points up and down the country so people can charge their electric vehicles. We need to have a bit of vision. But what do we get from this government? We get nothing but scandal after scandal, lie after lie. They don't have time, or the bandwidth to be able to deal with any of these issues. They are exhausted, they have no ideas, and frankly, they're letting the country down, and we are stuck as a nation.
OK, Emily Thornberry, what can we expect from Sir Keir Starmer if he is fined by Durham Police? Will he be appealing that decision, and will we be told if he is fined and he does appeal that decision? What do the next few days look like? Because there's lots of speculation that either he has been fined already and that is happening, or that he will be fined imminently. Can you give us an insight on what the exact steps will be?
Yeah, so Keir spoke about this yesterday, and what a contrast with Boris Johnson, huh? So Keir said that if the police fine me, I will resign. That's what he said. We have not heard from Durham Police.
He won't appeal,
and that's the end of it, really. But just compare it with the... So all I can tell you is that what Keir has said. If he gets a fine from Durham Police, he will resign. But he's not going to get a fine from Durham Police.
So he might,
because he hasn't done anything wrong. Unlike number 10, that was like party central during the pandemic, Keir Starmer did nothing wrong, and he will not get fined. It will not be an issue.
But just yes or no, will he appeal it if he's fined?
As far as I'm aware, he's not going to appeal it if he gets fined, but he's not going to get fined. I mean, where do you want me to go with this? He's not going to get fined. That's going to be the end of it. He hasn't done anything wrong.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.